the city was reaching a point of paralysis. My father got a letter from a friend in London who said, "We hear that the strikers are controlling the city, that they've taken over the government." The Americans were concerned because there had been agitation in the United States, and they viewed the city of Winnipeg as being the forefront of the battle. If Winnipeg fell, then presumably all of North America would fall. How would you like to be facing 27,000 strikers? No services to the city, food short. How would you handle it? In contrast to your authority is Andrews and the Committee of 1,000, an appointee of the federal government who was informing people they would not allow the strikers to communicate. What bloody nonsense. So what happened in Winnipeg? We in effect had three elements: the strike committee, the mayor of the city, and the Committee of 1,000, led by Andrews.
Within the actual committee, a small group, mostly lawyers, led by A.J. Andrews, directed the behind-the-scenes activities of the citizens, and their names read like the elite of the Winnipeg business and legal community. They bankrolled scabs, they bankrolled legal actions against strikers, they developed publications, they developed a national organization. The citizens invited the mayor to join the Citizens Committee, and the mayor said, "No, I'm a public official. I have a responsibility to the public. I cannot be associated with a lobby group," or so he declined. He said no.
My father's attitude throughout the strike was that the strikers had the freedom to negotiate and get a decent wage. He spoke to 20,000 of them at Victoria Park early in the strike, stating this. But he said, "You cannot encumber the citizens of this city who are innocent." My father called for representation from the Committee of 1,000. He wanted to know what was going on. The instructions from Andrews were they were not to communicate with the city in any form. They tried to assassinate my father. When he read the riot act on City Hall, a man in the group facing him shot twice. On the old City Hall, there were 2 marks on the parapet where the bullets landed. My mother received death threats in the mail. And one evening, my father and mother came home from some function. A man was in the house with a revolver. He said, "Mrs. Gray, I'll give you 2 minutes to say goodbye to your husband. I'm going to kill him." My mother quickly turned around, kicked the gun out of his hand, and he ran. My father made appeals to Ottawa for help. Robertson, the Minister of Labour, my father wired him. And he said, well, the affairs of state keep me in Ottawa. Besides, if I came to Winnipeg, could you please inform me what I could possibly do? A total resignation of federal government's responsibility.
They had an extraordinarily skillful lawyer in A.J. Andrews who played the federal government like a piano, who navigated around, used the law. He was appointed by Arthur Meehan to be his eyes and ears in Winnipeg during the strike. But he used that position to act against the strike as a vigilante because he was never given approval to arrest anybody.
On Bloody Saturday, when the parade got to be very hostile, my father could not telephone. It was out. He had to go, first of all, to the Attorney General of the province to get his permission to go and call out the army. Then he had to go again to Osborne Barracks to get them out. It was a terrible time, a function of wills.
Most people don't realize that the actual prosecution of the strike leaders was not done by the province of Manitoba, was not done by the government of Canada. It was a private prosecution, and private prosecutions were allowed under the criminal code. They still are, for that matter. If you're charged in a court of law with a crime, you need to know who is prosecuting you. And the strike leaders throughout 1919 didn't have any idea. They were mystified by who was actually behind the prosecution because they knew that the province wasn't. Ottawa found a way to help the citizens by bankrolling the prosecution. So what we have here really is a collaboration between Ottawa and the citizens. And with the approval, with the cooperation of the Attorney General of Manitoba to subvert basic principles of natural justice. If the citizens hadn't conspired to prevent a negotiated settlement, if they hadn't conspired to inflame people through racist commentary in the Winnipeg Citizen, through planting false stories that they knew were false, essentially to incite class against class, we're approaching the definition of sedition. That's what sedition is. So in 1919, the citizens were, if labor was guilty of sedition, the citizens were at least equally guilty of sedition. Not only did that, they assumed state powers that they didn't have. And that's clear. I mean, the evidence is absolutely clear. The mayor should have said that there was a conspiracy on the part of the citizens. He tried to bring about a negotiated settlement. He did not realize, and I don't know that he ever realized, that throughout the strike, the citizens were doing everything they could to subvert those efforts.
What was my father to do? He was left out to hang. No one had ever had a strike of all the trades. They didn't know what to do. They simply all sat back and said, let Gray handle it. That's what happened.